I'm not a salesman for this particular startup, but the one statistic that struck me, and one of the reasons I insisted that I invite my friend Ram to come here and tell his story, is because I asked him, at the end of the day, you're sitting as a member of a board of a hospital, and you want to know what this costs. And I think these figures were that for every bed, it would cost about $7,000, with software about $10,000. So if a hospital wanted to try this, for $100,000, they could fire up 10 beds, and at the end of the year decide whether or not this was something appropriate. So why spend $100,000? What's the cost saving to the hospital? And there's every hospital that's here, and every board member will understand that there's unbelievable pressure in terms of operating costs for hospitals. And it's growing, and the money isn't there, and the question is how to deal with it. So I asked the second question, okay, if we bring it to Canada, what's going to be the savings to the taxpayer? What's going to be the savings to the hospital? And I was told, I might be wrong, that the savings would be $50,000 per bed. Now, $50,000 in terms of nurses' care and all the rest of it. So at the end of the day, for an investment of $10,000 a year, you would save ultimately $40,000 a year. So take Mount Sinai Hospital, 400 beds. Do the mathematics. It would end up reducing the deficit, the operating deficit of Mount Sinai Hospital, just by this one innovation. Now, if this is correct, I don't know if it is or not, but it certainly, to my mind, it involves an investment. And I also said to them, if we're doing something, we want to make sure that one of the head offices in North America, if we do it here, will be Toronto. And that was our deal, so we'll hear later on. The next speaker is another very important and interesting guy, Paul Chipperton. Paul is responsible for all aspects of corporate development of a medical device right here in Toronto called Profound Medical. He's got great startup experience. He's been in the marketing and M&A activity in a number of companies. He was a co-founder of the board of Indanio Bioscience, Inc., and a guest lecturer at McGill, University of Toronto, and on managing innovation and entrepreneurship in the life sector. And we're absolutely delighted to have Paul come and tell us the Canadian story of a medical startup. Paul.
I'll stay seated if you don't mind. Thank you. Well, it's very, very close to Halloween, so I get to give you the scary and really serious story. Let's talk about the need before I tell you a bit about the company. And with an audience like this, it's typically a perfect example of what our technology can do and why it's important. Who here in the audience, or on the stage in fact, has had a PSA test? Seriously, that's probably less than 30% of the room. And medical recommendations are that you should at least start having PSA tests, which is prostate-specific antigen test, at the age of 40 or above. So as soon as we scoot out of here, I recommend everybody get in contact with their GP and go and have a PSA test, no matter where that is you live. Yeah, you're overdue? Yeah, okay. Well, there's a lot of people in the audience who are overdue as well. It is a reasonably well-known fact that prostate cancer has an extremely high level of incidence. 250,000 new cases a year in North America. That's new cases of incidence a year in North America. Same number in Europe, where they're increasing their PSA screening, and the more PSA screening that goes on, the more cases worldwide. There is good news with respect to prostate cancer, but there's also some very bad news. The good news is that if detected early enough, i.e. if you've had your PSA test, gentlemen, you have a very, very good chance of survival. Early detection of prostate cancer has a 99% 5-year survival rate if treated and if detected. The dirty little secret of the industry is, and those of you who have and understand the need to have a PSA test and may or may not have a necessary requirement to be treated, the big issue is that depending on any and all of the existing technologies out there and surgical approaches, 50% of men, and this is where the horror story part comes in, 50% of men, 2 years after treatment, will be incontinent or impotent. So I'll just repeat that, make sure everybody got that. You got it first time? Okay, fair enough. So, by the age of 55, 1 in 8 men will have prostate cancer. They will be diagnosed with prostate cancer. So typically what we're talking about, and I think we're looking at 8 people per table, Every table that's got 8 gentlemen sitting around it, you need to look around and determine which one of you at 55 will have prostate cancer. When you get to 65, it's 1 in 4. When you get to 75, it's 1 in 2. So you can do the maths yourself and work out very, very quickly that the incidence of prostate cancer and the treatment of prostate cancer leaves a very large group of the members of this audience at the age of 75 treated for the disease, impotent or incontinent. So here's the good news. Profound Medical is a Sunnybrook, it's the local story. It's a Sunnybrook Health Sciences spin-out. We founded about 2.25 years ago. We are venture capital backed to the tune of $2.5 million from local venture firm Genesis Capital Partners. And we're in the process of closing a $10 million round that we anticipate will be more good news for everybody by the end of this year. So I've defined the need, told you where we come from. Let me try and explain to you what we do and why we think it's important. I'm sure most of the audience are familiar with the concept of MRI as an imaging modality, and I'm sure everybody in the audience is familiar.
One of the guys that...
Yeah.
No, but just to tell you, Maury's a Torontonian. He was Jack Welch's right-hand guy at General Electric, and he was the guy that helped bring MRI machines to Toronto and across the world, and we're going to hear from him later in the day.
Terrific. A very, very important imaging development and starting to become a very important, or on the vanguard of diagnosis, non-invasive diagnosis as well. But so MRI is an important and critical imaging modality for our technology, and I'm sure everybody here is familiar with ultrasound as an imaging technology, but also as a treatment technology for athletic injuries when you use ultrasound to heat muscles to repair things. Well, our technology is an ability to combine the cutting-edge capabilities of MRI married to thermal ultrasound to treat the prostate in situ in an outpatient procedure in under 30 minutes. And the key component of that is we do it with much higher accuracy and precision of energy delivery and treatment than anything out there available, or as far as we know in development at this moment in time. So we have a tool that can move the treatment of prostate cancer into the outpatient setting in a much, much faster throughput of patients and treat the disease without making the man less of a man afterwards. And I've got a little video to show you kind of how it works. If you wouldn't mind, please, gents.
PMI system components are highlighted in green and can be separated into 2 distinct but integrated sets. On the left, the command and control units comprising of the physician's user interface, the thermal ultrasound generator, and the cooling system designed to protect critical structures. The remaining fully MRI-compatible delivery and treatment components are located on the MRI bed and composed of a positioning and motor system, a rectal cooling device, and the transurethral energy wand. With the benefit of a real-time MRI imaging, it is possible for the practitioner to position the device in such a manner as to avoid potential damage to the voluntary sphincter in the bladder, optimize the alignment of the transducer array to best fit the prostate gland, and precisely place the lead transducer 5 millimeters away from the involuntary sphincter at the urethral apex. In this manner, it is possible to minimize potential damage to key continent structures whilst maximizing the prostate treatment volume. MRI imaging allows the clinician to take virtual, real-time slices of the target organ directly over the ultrasound transducers relayed to the GUI, upon which the treatment plan can be developed. In this in vivo example, a large canine prostate of 40 cc's, not dissimilar in size to a human's, is to be treated. Yellow represents the physical boundary of the prostate, black is the prescription boundary, and red is the direction in which the transducers are pointing. Once the clinician is happy with the plan, a button is pressed and the treatment begins. The ultrasound transducers generate a series of parallel collimated energy beams that deliver thermal denaturization at a minimum 56 degrees Celsius under real-time MRI guidance and feedback to the prescription boundary in a single radial 360-degree sweep. The treatment time is very fast, approximately 20 minutes. While this exemplifies the potential to treat a very large volume of prostate, the system has great potential for focal treatment, delivering energy to a specific subsector or segment of the organ, using as few or as many transducers as required. As can be seen, there is a high degree of agreement between target boundary and actual treatment boundary, typically representing plus or minus 1 millimeter, plus or minus 1 degree Celsius.
So we are close to closing a $10 million financing, and the money will be deployed to do clinical trials in the northeast of the United States. One site here in Canada, which we hope and plan, if it's all possible, will be Ontario. And we're actually next month I'm over in Europe trying to identify an optimal site in either Germany, the Netherlands, or the UK to do clinical trials over there. So ideally, if we've got the numbers right, and we think we have, and the regulatory approach right, and we think we have, this technology will be approved for use as early as 2012 in Canada, as early as 2012 in Europe, and because there's a second level of FDA requirement, we'll probably be closer to 2014 in the United States. But we're staffed, and I think this speaks very well of the technology in the company. We're a very small company up here in Toronto with very limited capital available to us. And we have a clinical advisory board that counts the chair of the urology and nephrology clinic at the Cleveland Clinic, the head of abdominal MRI imaging from Harvard MGH, and the chief of urology here from Sunnybrook as well. So all of those guys are involved, active members of our clinical advisory board, and they do so not for the money. They do it because we can't pay them. They do it for a realization that our technology really could change the way that prostate cancer is treated and make a significant change to the lives of prostate cancer patients. So hopefully we'll close up financing by the end of this year, and we'll be pushing into clinical trials very soon. Thanks.